and walk hand in hand with a smile on your face. God, how am I supposed to do this? How am I supposed to deal with this pain, this hurt? But what God was not concerned about was the situation. God was concerned about Abraham's reaction. How are you going to react when the pain comes your way? Are you going to be able to still say, God, I love you? Are you going to be able to say, God, I still worship you? Are you going to be able to say, God, I still stand on what you told me? I still stand on your promises. That's what the pain is lending itself to. Now I have to tell the people that's in control of the volume, sometimes I get a little loud. So if you're on those controls back there, you may want to tweak the sound a little bit, because I am passionate about this word and what God is saying in this season. So understanding the purpose of the pain. We found ourselves in Romans chapter 5 again, the first verse. Therefore, being justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ, by whom we also have access by faith into the grace wherein we stand. And what? Rejoice in the hope of the glory. Rejoice in the good days. He said, yes, we're going to be able to rejoice in the good days, but that's the easy part. It's easy to tell God and be happy and run around when your bills are paid, when your kids are ace students, when your husband is doing what he's supposed to do, when your wife is doing what she's supposed to do. It's easy. Pastors, it's easy to, when the congregation is doing their tithes and offering, when they're showing up at Bible study and in small groups, it's easy to say, God, we are on fire. But what happens when summer rolls around? It got real quiet. The pastors have to keep smiling. And we have to keep showing up Sunday after Sunday, say everything's okay, the bills are okay. But what happens when the choir is at odds with each other? Pastors, what happens when even in our own, because sometimes people think that pastors, our lives are together. The hardest thing to do is to preach this sermon when you are going through pain in your own life. But you have to stand here strong, and guess what? You have to keep smiling. Y'all must know what I'm talking about. You show up, congregation, you show up to church and you have your kids in one hand and your wife on the other, and the pastor runs up to you, hey, how is everybody? How you all doing? And you all have to smile. Because we don't want others to know what's going on in our lives, but it's time for us to understand that if we understand the purpose of what we are doing, the purpose of what God is doing in us and through us, we'll be able to stand firmly. And this fake smile will not only come from here, but you will be able to smile from here. Because you understand what the pain is for. So this is what we're getting ready to get into. And not only so, but we glory in the tribulation, also knowing that tribulation worketh patience. So we find Paul clearing up a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding that has plagued our church so much. And when I say the church, I'm not talking about this physical building. I'm talking about the universal church. We've been so confused and so misled into thinking that if I could just Push everything down. It'll work itself out. It'll work itself out. It'll work itself out without really understanding that there is a purpose behind what you are going through. What is this purpose? I remember Pastor Eric. I was in the Navy. I spent some years in the Navy, got out of the military. When I was in the Navy, I was able to work with the world's greatest fighting machine, the United States Marine Corps. The world's greatest fighting machine. And in order to be a part of the United States Marine Corps, be a part of their units, I had to go through, I know I'm a small guy, but I had to go through the exact training they went through. So I know about crawling through the mud. I remember smelling the smell of incense or the fragrance of bombs and things going on while I'm under barbed wire. I remember I was crawling the water. We had to put our weapons on top of our head and we had to crawl through the water. And I got up too soon. Even though the end of the water was there, I got up right here. And the gunny sergeant looked at me and said, "I didn't tell you to get up. Start at the beginning and go." I was at the end of the course. But he told me to start all the way back over. But when I was there, one of the things that I've heard, even during our physical exercises, whether it was the 5-mile run, 5-mile group run, that's fun. Or maybe it was the 15-mile hump with about 75 to 100 pounds on your back. Now, that was a lot of fun. You guys ought to try that one. Or maybe it was one of their grueling PT sessions that lasted for hours. Or maybe it was when I earned the Marine Corps tan belt, martial arts belt. But whenever we was participating in these evolutions, like that's the best way to say it, we would hear this: pain is weakness leaving the body. Pain is weakness leaving the body. If Paul was a Marine, he would have written in the word in Romans, pain is weakness leaving the body. The purpose of pain, the purpose of having pain is for 4 particular things, 4 particular key ingredients, 4 particular key ingredients that we get whenever we are dealing with pain. And what it's supposed to do for Christians. It would give you 1, patience. If you want to know how your Christianity life is going, the first thing you need to look at is, what is your patience? Oh, I got real quiet when I said that. What is your patience like? And once you get patience, you will get experience. You have to get experience. What is experience? If I needed someone to work on my car, I would not go to, let's say, Brian. I wouldn't go to Brian to say, "Hey, Brian, I need you to work on my car," because Brian doesn't have the experience. So let's take this on the religious side. In order for you to help someone else, guess what you're going to need? Experience. So sometimes the pain that you're going through is not for you. It's for someone else. Down the line, you will gain experience. The next thing you would have hope. Because I have hope. Let me think about hope. Joseph was in jail after being lied on by the wife, the king's wife. And he was lied on, mistreated, jacket taken from him. She left the jacket, so the wife took it. But because he had experience, what do you mean he had experience? His brothers put him in a hole, lied on him, and took his jacket. So he had hope because I've been through this before. So God brought me out before, so he'll bring me out again. This pain would give me hope. And the last thing it would do, it would give me boldness. I will be able to stand flat-footed and declare that God is God and there is no other. Because I've been through some things and I know what God is capable of doing. God is God. I have three things I want to leave you with. Three things about or make that four things. I have four things that I want to leave with you about pain. Pain, when it comes to our relationship with Christ, you have to understand this, that some pain is designed for unbelievers, while other pain is designed for believers. I'll show you what I mean. The first type of pain is pain will persuade you. This is for the unbeliever. This is for the unbeliever. Sometimes God will allow pain to come in our lives as unbelievers because he's calling you. He's calling you. He's calling you. And because we've decided that I'm going to ignore God, he will cause pain in our lives. What are you talking about? I'll give you a biblical reference. In Acts, we find, Acts chapter 9, we find this. Meanwhile, Saul was still breathing out murderous threats against the Lord's disciple. He went to the high priest and asked for the letters of the synagogues in Damascus, so that if he found any here who belonged to the way, whether men or women, he might take them as prisoners at Jerusalem. As he neared Damascus on his journey, suddenly a light from heaven flashed around him. He fell to the ground and heard a voice say unto him, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? Who are you, Lord? Saul asked, I am Jesus, whom you persecuted. How did he know how did Paul know to say Lord? How did Paul know to say Lord? Because when you know God's voice, you will recognize. How do we know this? How do we know this? God said, my sheep knows my voice. God put Saul in a position that if you fall off a horse, I guarantee you are going to be in pain. Not only was he in pain, but he was also blinded. For 3 days he was blinded, lost. He had to rely on others.